I just filmed an entire video and I looked at the footage and I didn't like how my hair looked, and I still don't, but this is a little bit better than last time, so I'm gonna give it a second shot. But anyway, if you're wondering how my day is going, that's how. Also, another fun little fact before we start the video is that I had to have this tight frame because if you look right here, it is my grandmother's baby doll. So I'm just gonna move over here again. Okay, so everything's as good as it's gonna get is a thing, so let's just get started. Today I'm going to be sharing with you the books that I bought on my most recent trip to New York City. One of my goals this summer was to read a lot more nonfiction and to learn about a lot of stuff while I'm not in school right now, so that it's easier on my head, because during the school year I have a really hard time reading nonfiction because I'm reading so much for my degree. So all the books that I got here today were actually all nonfiction, so hopefully you're into that. But let's just get started. The first book that I want to mention is Caliban the Witch, Woman, the Body, and Primitive Accumulation by Sylvia Federici. Oh no, it's not even framed. Wait, I have a little camera. I could put it here and then it'd be like Inception. But I won't do that to you. So the first book I want to talk about is Caliban the Witch, Woman, the Body, and Primitive Accumulation by Sylvia Federici. This book is so hard to describe, and I'm already a chapter and a half in, but that hasn't made it any easier to really describe. I kind of just have like a vague idea about what this book is about. It talks a lot about the transition from feudalism to capitalism and how that affected women and like the body, and then towards the end it's also going to tie in how the witch trials are connected to this. There's a whole lot more in here. Like, I feel like that's not even scratching the surface, but I feel like I really need to read the whole thing to give an honest synopsis. So anyways, this is the first book I've actually already started reading. I don't know if you can see, I'm really into it. This is so good, and I had to get it when I saw it because every single person that I've ever followed online who's like a Marxist recommends this and raves about it, and so far it's living up to the hype, so we'll see. The next book I have here is The Red Deal, Indigenous Action to Save Our Earth by The Red Nation. This is a fairly new release, I believe, and I first heard about it in a podcast. There was an interview with Nick Estes, I think, who I believe is like one of the main people behind the Red Nation. He's great. I really love him and his work. But the podcast that I listened to talking about this, it critiqued the Green New Deal, which is put out by like AOC, and it talked about a new vision for a decolonized society, and obviously that has a lot to do with Native people in America, because the Red Nation, the whole premise behind it is to be dedicated to the liberation of Native peoples. But anyway, I'm really interested in this book. It's really short too, so I feel like I should be able to get through it. I really like the idea of discussing new futures away from the chains of capitalism. I don't know, I'm talking like this. Anyway, moving on. The next book I have to talk about got really messed up in the rain, actually, because it was storming when I was in Brooklyn, and I'm really upset about it. But it's Know My Name, a memoir by Chanel Miller. Now, I don't know much about this book, actually. There's a really famous case of sexual assault that got a lot of public attention, and I think 2017, I want to say, primarily because the rapist wasn't held accountable, because fuck America. Another part of the reason that the story went viral is because the woman who was assaulted, she wrote a letter to the court, I believe, and it was anonymous, and talked about how like the incident affected her, and it was so well written, it was so beautiful. I remember a lot of people were sharing it around at the time, and that was Chanel Miller, so that she's now gone public, and this is her story. I don't know how much it has to do with that, how much it has to do with other things, but I'm really excited to read this. I've been wanting to read it for a while, so I was glad I got my hands on it. The next book wow, that didn't make sense. The next book I have here, I also heard about during a podcast. So this is Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teaching of Plants by Robin Wall Kimmerer. This woman is has the sweetest, most soft-spoken voice, and it made me love her instantly. But she's also so interesting to listen to. I think the interview touched a lot on what this book talks about too, because I know that she emphasized like how indigenous teachings can be tied into science, and like the notion that plants and animals are our oldest teachers, and the podcast was so interesting. I really wanted to learn more, so I'm really excited to pick this up. She also has a book that I think is called like an autobiography of moss, where she traces the history of moss from like its beginnings and like its importance in different cultures and stuff, and I think that's so cool. So I really want to read that, but I thought this would be a great place to start because I'm already a little bit familiar with her argument. Then I picked up a book about Palestine, so I got The 100 Years' War on Palestine, A History of Settler Colonialism and Resistance by Rashid Khalidi. I know a little bit about Palestine, like I know the general situation, but I feel like I really want to delve into the topic more, so that I can come up with specific points, kind of. I think what I'm trying to say in a really long-winded way is that I really want to know more about Palestine. I chose this book specifically, they had several there, but I chose this one because it focuses specifically on settler colonialism in the lens of Palestine, which I'm really interested in. So then, like, as I was in the store, and I wasn't stopping myself from picking up any book that I wanted, as long as it was on like a subject I didn't know that much about. I justified these purchases by making myself pick up kind of a harder book to read. I know a lot of these are nonfiction, so some of them might be kind of hefty to get through and have like academic language that's kind of annoying, but I wanted to pick up some theory, so I picked up Foucault's The History of Sexuality, Volume 1, and that kind of speaks for itself. I've read like maybe 10 pages of Foucault in one of my social theory classes. The issue was that my professor had chosen like a random thing and then didn't give us any of the context around it. Like it wasn't even the beginning of a chapter or like a book or anything, so it was really confusing to get through. I'm hoping I'll have better luck with this one. The interesting thing with this one too is actually in Caliban and the Witch, in the introduction they talk about this a little bit and they critique it, so I'm really interested to read it afterwards and see what I think. Next we have a really teeny tiny book. This is Witches, Midwives, and Nurses, A History of Women Healers by Barbara Ehrenreich and Deidre English. This book talks about the corruption of the medical establishment and its historic roots in demonizing of women healers, which is very interesting. It's so short too. I don't know, I guess I was in kind of a witchy mood considering I picked this and Caliban and the Witch, but it just sounded really cool and I didn't want to pass. So I'm excited to get into this too. And there's one more book left. I promise this comes to an end at some point, but the next book I have is Disability, Visibility, First-Person Stories from the 21st Century by Alice Wong, edited by her. This book is so cool. First of all, I love the cover. This is some great cover art. This book basically just shares the stories of people who are living with disabilities. I was really interested in this because I'm really passionate about social justice and learning about social issues, but I realized I don't actually have any books about disability, so I thought this would be really good to add to my collection. Also, this book was, I believe it was one of the books for No Names Book Club a couple months back. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. And I really wanted to read it then, so when I saw it, I just had to pick it up. These are all the books I bought. I don't know I'm holding like this because this doesn't really help you. Does this? Not really, because it's all just a big mess, just like me. These are all the books I picked up from New York as they fall out of my arms. And thank you all for watching, and I'll see you soon with another video. I don't know, I'm talking like this. Okay, bye!